Hello, happy St. Patrick's Day. I have on my green and I have my St. Patrick's Day scarves hanging up on my bookcase. Um, I am a lot of Irish and a lot of Scottish, a little bit of French, a little bit of English, some Native American, Cherokee Crow, and probably quite a bit of other things thrown in there. The melting pot of, the United States, I reckon. So, as you all know, I am working on my outline for Camp NaNoWriMo, and I found a really great resource, I guess I should say. A couple of years ago, I know it was definitely not, might have been last year, but it might have been the year before. Anyway, Jim Butcher has on LiveJournal writing advice. Some resources, some information, not really resources necessarily, but I have his information from the LiveJournal on writing, and I follow it. I don't really do necessarily every single thing that he has listed, but I have went through from the very beginning where he says, first you need to write down your story question, and then you need to write down your protagonist, his tags, traits, how you intend to introduce him or her. Write down your antagonist, his or her tags and traits, and how you intend to introduce him or her. I talked about tags and character yesterday. Third, you could draw arc. You can write it out like you write down your plot, and on the left you write like a phrase, the opening scene, and on the right you can write like a phrase like that says the climax. In the middle, you can write middle, or whatever event that starts that dominoes that are going to fall, and you can make a bunch of tick marks. I have the W on my wall, as you can see. That's part of it. Let's see if I can, there you go, you get the lamps in the way, but you get the general idea. Okay, so you make the ticks along the way, and you fill in scenes that you have in mind that you know that you want to do, they're important to it. I have obstacles listed, like the plot point, conflict, the second pinch point. I have stick-it notes, post-it notes on there. Once you've done that, you can add some more tick marks on the in-between, those important things, and add phrases like that describe the scene, that leads your character from one established tick to the next, like in a logical manner. If you are more detail-oriented, you could add more. Or you could use index cards. I have some index cards that have the bigger information, and then post-it notes with the smaller information. I have different size post-it notes on there too. Fourth, so you do the plot arches for your subplots too. So you make sure that you know where they begin and end and what causes them to be resolved. What starts it, how they're connected, and then the resolution for your subplots. And the fifth thing you're going to want to do is to character profiles. You need to profile every significant character, just like your protagonist and antagonist. Like, I call them minor characters. To me, are people that come in briefly. They don't necessarily need a name. The shopkeeper, the cashier, the lawyer, the accountant, that kind of thing. Those are minor characters. And although I do give a brief description of them, like if I talk about them in a scene, the lawyer, I describe what he's wearing, where he works, what he does, any information that's important to the story, and then if need be, I give him a name. If not, then I just leave the description up there of when he came in the novel, what scene he was in, chapter, why he was in there, how he relates to the story, that kind of thing. So the sixth thing you're going to want to do, but with, I'm sorry, let me go back for a minute, with more major, minor characters, those characters that are going to have an impact on your protagonist or antagonist or both, you're going to want to do character profiles for them, character sketches. Like, Say, for me, my protagonist has a couple of relatives that are relevant to the story. She is a hereditary witch, so of course she has some cousins, an aunt, an uncle that are in the story, and I have to finish. I have started some, but I haven't done very many of them. You want character sketches for that. So it's important that you have that. Okay, so the next thing is to outline your scenes and sequels. Each of your tick marks or phrases on your plot arc, like my plot board, should describe either a story event, which is a scene, or a logical point that leads to the next story event, which is a sequel. You start from the beginning and you outline your first scene on its own page, then you outline the sequel that follows. I do this in Scrivener. I have one in a chapter. I have two. One is labeled scene, one is labeled sequel. And the seventh, you sketch out the climax. So story climaxes in structure terms is the answer to the story's question. I remember I started with the story question. Okay, so the story climax is important because when you talk about, like, when you hook your readers, you get them emotionally involved in the story. Well, if you've done it right, he says, you reach the story's end, they're invested in the outcome. They want to see what happens, preferably as vividly as possible. And by the time you've reached the end of the story, a good writer, he says, has got their readers on the edge of their seats. Say it's 3:30 in the morning and the pages are tearing every time they turn because the reader is so excited. And I have done that with Harry Dresden. Jim Butcher is not lying. I also did that with Harry Potter. I've done that with some Stephen King books. When I read the Dark Tower series, I was on edge. Every time he came out with a new book, I was waiting. It took like over 10 years or longer. I think it might have actually been 20. Between the first Dark Tower book and the second Dark Tower, it was a very, very long wait. Patrick Rothfuss has nothing on the wait that I had for Stephen King's second book in the Dark Tower series. Just saying. Just saying. And I've been an avid fan of Stephen King since I was 10, so that's, 37 years. And I'm going to tell you, yeah, Patrick Rothfuss, and I'm waiting on his book. I'm waiting. He's such a great writer, and I know that it takes a lot of work to get a book done. And it's a long wait, but it's worth it. I know it will be worth it. I love his books. And there goes my I got mail notification. But so I'm okay with the wait, but anticipation, you want your book to have that effect on your reader. You really do. You've made an implicit promise, he says, by getting your reader so bound up in the story. You've got to deliver on it. Or that reader's going to freaking hate you for doing that to them. And he's right. I have read books, gotten all into the book. I mean, the middle was great. When you get to the end, you're like, what the fuck? And yes, I just said that. Yes, I did. Because there is nothing to me worse than I have invested all this time and all this energy into a book. And if a book is really good, I can read it in one day. If it's really good and it's not super, super long, like Lord of the Rings or the last Harry Potter book, or, I can read them really long. Really, I mean, in a short period of time, unless they're super long. So, you got to deliver on it, or the reader's going to freaking hate you, he says. So, we'll go back to that. That's what a catharsis is. It's the release of all that tension and sympathetic emotion that the reader's built up because of the writer's skill at weaving the story. You want to be a story weaver. I don't want to be just a writer. I want to be a storyteller, a story weaver. That's one of the things I love about Stephen King, is that he is a storyteller. Don't get me wrong, I like classics. I like the more literary kind of books too. I'm a big fan of The Grapes of Wrath. I'm a big fan of Shakespeare, a big fan of Vonnegut, a big fan of a lot of, I think there are a couple that I read that weren't really my thing, but basically it's, to me, those are writers. It's more, it's not like a story, like a bedtime story. Like, I'm into that book and I feel like I'm a part of it. I'm part of the story. To me, a storyteller puts you in it. It's like being in the old days before they had the written word and you had the people who were telling you stories. When I'm reading a book that's more like the classics, I know I'm reading a book. I don't feel as much of a part of the story. To me, those are books, whereas the books that are written by actual story, to me, what I feel like are more storytellers, or I feel like I'm in the book, like I am part of it, like I got sucked into it in some other dimension universe. And I think it's really important. I'm going to stop there because we're going to talk about the Swampy Middle tonight in the tweet chat, and I have 30 minutes before the Scrivener webinar comes on, and I have some things I have to do beforehand. Have been busy organizing my writing room. I have boxes and bins, a little bit left, like just a little still around. I have a big basket full of coats that need to be hung up or put in a box, coats and sweaters, because the weather's getting warm now. And there's one other thing that I want to do before the webinar starts, because it's from 4 to 5 and I am Eastern Standard Daylight Savings Time, whatever all that mess is. Right now, as I film this, it's 3:29 in the afternoon. So I'm going to finish my coffee. As you can see, I am using one of the mugs I got recently. That was my $2.99 mug from TJ Maxx, and I love it. It's big. I have a Starbucks mug, but it's not as big, and I don't see paying a fortune for a mug just because it says Starbucks. Don't get me wrong. I love their coffee. That's Starbucks in my coffee cup. But I don't really need my coffee cup to say Starbucks. I just want the coffee. I don't really, but I like the big mugs. So I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye.